Good evening. The meeting is now called to order. This is the Education, Youth, and Family Services Committee meeting for Wednesday, November the 16th, 2024. I am the chair, Councilmember at-large Albert Mills. At this time, I will call the roll for those members of the committee first. Councilwoman Latricia Bracey, Vice Chair.
Present.
Councilwoman Brigida Fields. Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver.
Present.
Councilman Vincent White.
Present.
And Council President Trippy Congo.
Here.
Thanks, sir. Are there any other council members present? As a friendly reminder, only members of the committee should be making motions or second. And we'll go right into the agenda. First up, we have an update from the Red K Consolidated School District Superintendent, Dr. Dorrell Green.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Councilman Mills, and Chair, and those who are on the Education, Youth, and Families Committee in the City of Wilmington. Honored to be here this evening representing the Red Clay Consolidated School District. I was asked to kind of give a brief update as to some of the things that are happening in Red Clay. I know actually a week ago today, I was in council chambers with Reading Consortium discussing the resolution that was passed back on May 9th of 2024 for the Reading Consortium with regards to the redistricting efforts that are underway in the city of Wilmington. So I'm here this evening on official Red Clay business. Again, thank you to this committee and all those throughout the city of Wilmington who choose Red Clay. We definitely think we're providing an excellent education for our students and families, albeit there's much work to do. Red Clay, and we can go to the next slide. Again, it's just not a choice. It's an investment in a world of opportunities. We're by far the most dynamic school district in the state, both geographically, demographically, and I would say based on the programs and offerings that we have. And so it's a launch pad, for dreams and a promise of an exceptional educational journey that prepares our students to excel. And again, there is much work to do. Just for some statistical kinds of frameworks right now, based on our September 30th unit count, we're serving, you can go to the next slide, approximately 15,500 students. And we're home to 31 outstanding schools and programs, and those programs extend to our First State School, which is located in Wilmington Hospital, which supports students who have acute healthcare needs that can't get their education in a traditional school setting. So that might be news to some, that we actually have the First State School that's located in Wilmington Hospital, and we are the largest public and charter school system, being the only district that authorizes 2 charter schools. 3 out of our 5 high schools continue to be recognized as top 5 in the state. And we're continuing to look for ways to lead in innovation and future readiness. And in my tenure here, going on 6 years now, we've had 3 nationally ranked blue ribbon schools, and our staff members continue to receive various distinct honors from School Counselor of the Year. Several of our schools have received supports and recognition, continue to receive supports. Marbrook Elementary, albeit supports students both in and outside of the city, just received recognition yesterday for serving students with special programs and special populations. We can go to the next slide. So what I have linked here is just a link for council members and those in the community. We're embarking on a new strategic plan in Red Clay, and what you have here is our priority 1, which is student growth, success, and equitable outcomes. And under that, we have 4 major objectives, which are student growth towards equitable outcomes, early literacy, equitable college and career programming for all secondary schools, that's both middle and high schools, and then really looking at systems of supports and interventions. And in addition to these objectives, 2 other priorities that we have are family engagement, strategic partnerships, and our 3rd priority are resource and operations. We came off a historic referendum last year, the first one in 10 years in Red Clay, with well over 70% of the community coming out to support We feel it's incumbent upon us to be strategically aligned in terms of how we put systems of supports in place and are good stewards of the resources that our community are entrusting us with. We took a unique approach to our strategic plan where we released several surveys, a strategic priorities diagnostic survey. We did community engagement surveys. We did strategic planning benchmark analysis using various data sources. We looked at equity scorecards as we continue to focus on equitable resources, outcomes, and supports for our diverse student population. We looked at learning loss analysis post-COVID. How can we accelerate learning based on the impacts of the COVID pandemic? We looked at benchmarking our career and technical education programs, extending that to our middle school students so that by the time they get to high school, our goal ultimately through our portrait of a graduate is for them to graduate with some sense of certification, not just a high school diploma, credentials or stackable credentials as they prepare for career, college, military, and or the workforce. So that labor market analysis actually was something that we did, and it looked at high demand jobs and career clusters in the county, state, and the region. As far north as New Jersey, and as far south looking at Baltimore, Maryland. And then we did various focus groups with staff. We can go to the next slide. And so again, our focus is around early literacy, understanding, and as we all know, we're here where students are with regards to proficiency levels, not reading at or on or above grade level. And so that starts early when we look at our pre-K to 5 students. Not only are we using high quality instructional materials, but really looking at the science of reading and how we're incorporating, I think the old way of teaching, and it's interesting, I've been in education long enough to see things come full circle, going back to more of a phonics-based approach to ensure that our students have not only language comprehension, word recognition, but also the various factors that go into that, from verbal reasoning, providing background knowledge, vocabulary, decoding, sight word recognition, and phonological awareness. So we're really focused on building that strong foundation around literacy, incorporating writing back into our curriculum to ensure that we're looking at that growth toward proficiency model throughout Red Clay. You can go to the next slide. And that will lead us to just really looking at equitable career, college-ready programming for our secondary schools, everything from AVID, which is advancement through via individual determination programming, looking at AP seminar, ensuring that all of our students have opportunity to access rigorous coursework, albeit they may not necessarily decide that they want to go to college, but providing them with that rigor and that exposure, because there are transferable skills, as we know, when students are experiencing or have experienced to whether that would be on grade level or above grade level types of coursework, transferable skills such as communication, analyzing sources and evidence, being able to construct an argument. I mean, I think we see it, having civic debates, elections, various things that we know impact our communities, ensuring that upon graduation, our students are able to engage. Student voice is something that we're big on in Red Clay, and promoting that student agency is something that we're looking to do across all of our secondary schools. Next slide. So again, equitable. So you looking at college career fair. We just hosted a college career fair, but we're also looking at AP seminar. So our goal is to expand that so that all students at 10th grade in Red Clay will have access to this across all of our secondary schools, whether they choose to take the advanced placement exams or not. We know, again, by engaging in that advanced coursework, it provides students with opportunities and access far beyond what traditional or what we would normally or historically have called college prep, which we've removed that nomenclature off of all of our high school schedules, because in our analysis, we're providing students with remedial work, and we were designated that as college prep, and students walking around with schedules feeling as if they were preparing from college, and we knew that wasn't the case. So that continues to be a focus for us to provide, again, students with as wide a variety or background of activities or coursework, regardless of their background, zip code, where they may come from throughout Red Clay. Next slide. So our diversity, equity, and inclusion work is focused around supporting our staff, Right now, I'm happy to report we have single-digit teacher vacancies across Red Clay. I think last count, we had about 8 vacancies. Teacher vacancies, we're imposing and supporting things such as, I don't mean impose, but we have diversity champions in each of our schools. We provide relevant, culturally responsive professional development, not only for our teachers, but our paraeducators, support staff across the district. We've instituted, I think retention is our best recruitment strategy. So we have the Red Clay Affinity Groups, Empowered Voices of Infinity, which is a teacher, educator, staff-led initiative that is not driven by administration. It's really giving our staff across the district that sense of belonging that they desire. And through that process, they're actually able to elevate recommendations and things to my office and district level based on their perspective and what they see may need change throughout the district. Next slide. And this is just an example of new data scorecard that we're highlighting to really look at, areas, whether that would be reading, math, attendance, school climate, discipline, creating benchmarks. As we said, what gets monitored or what gets measured gets done. And so we're intentional about how we're looking at data throughout our schools, throughout the district, to be able to, again, live out what we said are our strategic intents in our strategic plan. Next slide. You can go to the next one. Oh, well, I'll go back. We are also doing an analysis. I know, again, we touched on redistricting, of really looking at enrollment and programming across our middle and high school attendance zones. Red Clay High School feeder patterns haven't had an adjustment since the 80s. As we enter this choice window, we know that families are, for lack of a better term, shopping schools. And regardless of the school in Red Clay, we want to provide the same high-level, comprehensive, supportive educational environment, regardless, again, of where you come from or what school you attend. So we're in the process of working around our school board to conduct an analysis of our middle and high schools. Next slide. And just the remaining slides, we are in the choice window. The choice window opened Monday, November 4th. You can go to the next slide. It runs through January 8th, where the school choice application window closes. February 12th, school board will take action. Notifications will be sent out for those families that participate in the choice programs back in February, and they'll have till March to have their acceptance. But all of this information is on our website. Again, I know I only had 5 or 10 minutes for a presentation, but you can read through the remaining slides, or you can go to our website to get all the relevant choice information as your constituents, our families throughout the city of Wilmington inquire about choice options throughout the Red Clay School District. So with that, I will end my presentation. Happy to answer any questions from any council member.
All right. Thank you for your presentation, Doctor. Any questions from council?
Yes, I have one.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wanted to.
I'm
ask
sorry,
you a question.
one second, Councilwoman Oliver.
I'm sorry.
Council President Congo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Green,
Yes, sir.
can you explain to us how the choice process works?
So yeah, that probably would take 5 hours in itself. Long story short, families have the opportunity or access to provide an application. There is an online process. Well, and for those families who may not necessarily or who aren't able to do it online, they can go to the school closest to them to fill out a hand choice application. And basically, the choice process is open to any Delaware family to choice across districts, to choice into our charter and or vocational schools. Families get up to 3 options of a desired choice where they can, again, apply for choice, and then they'll go through that process. It is a lottery-based process that families can enter into, again, based on a desire of their options, whether that would be public schools that have available space, the VOTEC system, or our charter options.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Oliver. Councilwoman Oliver, you can ask your question now.
She's muted.
You're on mute, man.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much. I just want to ask a question regarding Delaware Hospital. How long have y'all been over there working with the youth, the kids who really need some assistance over there for us? Whatever line of medical assistance they need. How long have y'all been in the Wilmington Hospital?
So I've been here going on 6 years, and the program has been there as long as I've been here. I'd be remiss to give you an exact number as to how long the program has been there, but it's been there for many years. And again, it's for students who have acute medical needs that require hospitalization, and that's where they receive their education. Happy to give any council member a tour of that building to see. And we serve not only Red Clay students, but there could be school students in a neighboring district example that may require that support or service as well, that available seating is available. That's the students, again, who require acute medical care.
Oh, I would love to walk. I would love to walk through. This is the first time, for some reason, I've heard. I think that's excellent. And just to hear, Mr. Chairman, a follow up.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. No, and I just wanted to. I think that's a great thing because we do have a lot of youth that can use that assistance. But I want to state that I'm glad to hear that your grades. I mean, I hear good things about Red Clay anyway, but just to hear that your grades is up, you're receiving awards, because I know our youth or a lot of our students have fallen behind, and we have new buildings and new this and that, but then the grades are still low. So it's good to hear that you are investing in your teachers, because I think the teachers should be stewards for their students. And I know it's a shortage on teachers, but it's really sad to go into some buildings and you have these substitute teachers who don't have any experience, haven't been trained, and the kids are just running around and it's just no order. So just to hear some of the good things that Red Clay is doing, I was determined to be on here today to hear the good things that you're doing, and you continue to do that because we have to invest in our youth, or otherwise, we already know what's happening right now. So I just wanted to give kudos to you and your staff, and continue to do the work that you're doing. And whenever you get a chance, whoever wants to go, if staff or someone can let me know, I would love to walk through there and look at that facility because I've never even knew about it. Thanks again.
Yes, you're welcome, and we'll follow up. And President Congo, I put the link in the chat for the school choice information. And on there, we did a virtual town hall for the choice open house night, which families can also replay that. So I put the link in the chat. So hopefully you can receive that and it can get circulated amongst the council members and again, our constituents or community members that may need that information.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Councilman White?
Hello, Doctor. Question, how do you feel, or what's your belief in regarding Wilmington, the city of Wilmington, having a more active role in the education of Wilmington youth, including having a seat at the various boards, on the various boards that the youth from the city go to?
So I would generally say right now that the districts that support the city currently do have a seat that represents the city. And I believe that was instituted under Mayor Baker, where there is a board seat that technically represents the city on each of our respective boards. Actually, Red Clay has two because it's proportionate. I guess to your broader question, should the city have more involvement around the general governance of the city? My personal belief is yes. I've had the fortune of working in Christina, Red Clay, Brandywine at the state level. And in my 25 plus years of serving in public education, both in and around the city of Wilmington, I think the city needs to be at the table to support the trajectory of the students and families that we all collectively serve.
Thank you.
And that's my personal belief, sir, what you asked for, so I'm more than happy to give it.
No, I appreciate your frankness.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Green. One quick question in reference to the First State School at the hospital. Do you know if they deal with children who are on the autism spectrum?
We have 50, it depends on the need. We have a robust autism program in our district where I think we probably are close to 700 students within our autism program throughout the district. And we have over 51 school-based autism classrooms throughout the district. But again, students are there based on their unique identified needs. So potentially there could be students there, but that's not the setting most often where those students will receive their educational services. They're receiving them within our traditional programs. We have the Meadowwood program, and again, we have classroom-based autism sites throughout the Rec Lake School District.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yep.
All right, any other questions from council? All right, seeing no hands. Any questions from the public? I'm sorry, Councilwoman McCoy? Oh, just as she's joining us. Okay, thank you very much, Doc. Appreciate your time, your presentation. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Here for you if you need any follow-up questions. Take care.
Yes, sir. Also like to recognize Councilwoman Yolanda McCoy has joined us. And next up presentation, we have Dr. Patton from the Christiana School District. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's not doctor. I get that all the time, so
My
just
paper
wanted to
says
add
doctor, so
clarity.
tonight you're
understand.
Dr. Mill.
Thank you very much. I know the hard work that takes, and my good friend, Dr. Green, worked to get.
Yes, sir.
So I want to make sure it's Mr. Patton.
Mr. Patton, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Am I-
Yes, sir.
Can you give me the next slide, please? And before I get started, I just want to, so my role here tonight is to give an update on a question that the council should have relative to Christina School District giving up their portion of the city. So I've added some additional information. I'd also like to add a different presentation to send to you because I asked the schools to provide me with some of the things that they're doing so that the council and folks in the city, we get a chance to explore that. So there will be a follow-up about, I think when I talked to Ms. Anita, she said about 5-6 slides. Mm-hmm. So I try to keep it into that number, okay. But I'd like to send you another one later, probably the early part of next week, so that you can just see the good things that are going on in our schools, because there are a lot of good things going on in the 4 city schools that I'll talk a little bit about. So I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So the city schools that, for those who, first of all, thank you very much for Mr. Chairman and board members and council president for allowing me to come and give you an update on the previous conversation we had some months ago. But the 4 schools particular that we'll be talking about are the Bayard School, which is grades 1 through 8, Pulaski, which is pre-K through 12. And they're together because they're on the west side of Wilmington, and so kids feed from Pulaski into the Bayard School. On the east side is Maurice Bridget Academy, formerly known as Bancroft, and those are grades 1 through 8. And Stubbs feeds into Maurice Bridget Academy with pre-K through K. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give you some idea of the number of students who are attending each of those schools I just spoke about. And if you'll look from 23 to 24, 24 to 25, you'll see an increase in each one of those schools. So the student number or population of students is increasing, though in the district it might not be, but in the city it is, and I think that's important. Dr. Green spoke about his enrollment, the population in his district being about 15,000. Ours is about 13,000. Next slide, please. So this is, again, this slide and the next slide, just to give you an idea for the last 3 years from an academic standpoint on Smarter Balance, the state test, the results that each of those schools have had, and they're varied. But I want to be clear because later on I'll talk about something that's dear to me, and I want to be clear about those numbers don't even approach being acceptable. Those are just what they are. Mm-hmm. And so the work that is going on now in our schools and the work that I'll talk about in collaboration with the Wilmington Learning Collaborative, I think will give us an opportunity to, because when you're this low, it's easy to make a big jump, but you just have to have the right things in place academically, social, emotionally, the right resources to make that jump. And so, and it starts with the leadership. Once you have the right leadership in school and they're moving in the right direction, you'll see those numbers go up pretty quick because they're so low. And I don't think they're even representative, to be honest, of the ability and the skills of the students who are in our schools in the city. Next slide, please. Again, this is the math. The first one was ELA, and this would be the math scores for the last 3 years on state tests. Next, please. So this slide is put in to talk about the leadership of the schools, and that was one of the things that is important to me, because I think for schools to make an effective and appropriate growth, academic, social, emotional, you have to have a good leader. We currently, in both of our Maurice Bridget Academy and the Byard School, we have temporary leaders, which, thank God, the Wilmington Learning Collaborative is put out and was awarded ALMA, which is a group that specializes in superintendents, administrators, and so they're working in conjunction with WLC and the district to find the appropriate leaders to go into those two schools as soon as possible. I think if you look at the timeline, February is when they're targeting, trying to have this process completed. I had an opportunity to talk with a representative of the ALMA group on Monday.
I'm sorry, what group?
The ALMA group.
Okay.
So that's the group that the Wilmington Learning Collaborative has awarded the opportunity to work with for finding an appropriate and successful candidate for leadership at both of our 2 schools in the city, or 8 schools in the city. I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of Dr. Green and the question you asked, and I could get that same question when I'm finished. But one of the things that I've said in my interview with this organization, the ALMA, is that they should come to the city council president, they should come to the mayor and ask them for whatever representatives they want to have present, but to talk to them about the leaders that are going to be selected for these 2 schools. I think, and I've used this term and some people don't like it, but I think we're criminal when I look at the results that our students in the city of Wilmington are performing under. And I think that if you look at the leadership of these 2 schools over the past, I'm going to say about 5 years, we haven't had we've always had good people. And when I say good people, people who are committed, people who are dedicated, people who want the best for our kids. But when you're in an urban environment, it takes more than that. It takes a transformational leader, a person who understands the complexity of the comprehensive building, inside and out. And so I argue that we've not had transformational leaders in those schools, and that has caused some of the problems that we see when you look at the data and when you look at some of the discipline that happens in these city schools. We got, this group is charged with coming up with a person after talking to the community, which you will be a part of, after talking to staff, after talking to students, after talking to parents. We'll come up with the idea of perfect candidate that we're looking for these 2 schools. And so you should be a part of that. This is one of the exceptions in the country where you have a city this size that has no control or no say over the education of their students. And I think we have to. Next slide, please. So one of the questions you might be asking in this update is what's next, or what's going to happen with the schools? Are we losing the schools? Are we giving the schools away? I've talked to a lot of people in this Newark area who are more than happy to see these schools move to another district. But we don't have that ability. The only folks that have that ability are legislators to redistrict our schools or the schools that belong to the Christina School District to where they feel is appropriate. I would hope they take into consideration what I'm taking into consideration, which is to just up and say we want to move these young folks to Red Clay School District or move them to the Brandywine School District. Again, I think falls along that line, and maybe I use this word too easily, criminal. I think we have to put kids where they're going to be able to be successful. So I think there has to be a plan that's fully laid out that the city, the mayor, city council has to be a part of and look at and say, yes, the legislators who represent the city, yes, this will work for our kids. But just to say we're going to move them because we want to get them out of a district who hasn't treated them the way I think they should have been treated, I don't think that that's the answer. I do think the answer is to move them. I do think the answer is that we haven't done right by those schools for a number of different reasons, and they've been different depending on who the superintendent of the district was. So this is not anything lately or anything new. This is something that's been going on for a number of years, and it's now coming to, I think, where the Reading Consortium is saying we are going to do something, and so I welcome that. I just hope that the something is really thought out well, and that we know what the plan is, and the plan is a plan that's going to make sure we're moving our kids successfully, and we're funding it appropriately and adequately. So the timeline right now would be 2 to 3 years. So we're not talking about this year or at the end of this year. Even if the legislators passed a bill to redistrict, the complexity of that is going to take at least 2 to 3 years before it's actually seen. So in that time, I keep arguing, and in my role as the president of the school board, I keep fighting to say, we can't depend on the Wilmington Learning Collaborative to come in and save the Christina School District students. That's our responsibility. Should they support it because it's an initiative that has been borne by the governor? Absolutely. But to say, for instance, last year.
Something went wrong. Please try again.
I apologize. I have no idea what that is. Last year, the board put 2 additional administrators in city schools. One in, at the time, Bancroft, and one over at the Byard School. They didn't earn those administrators.
Sorry, what board are we speaking of? Your board?
The Christina School District Board. They didn't earn those administrators. We just pushed because the administrator who started it was at Bancroft and said she needed an extra administrator in the building. And so if you're going to hold people accountable, I felt like then you need to give them the resources that they can show you they need. And so the theory was the Wilmington Learning Collaborative should put and pay for that assistant principal in both of those 2 schools. My argument, which was the argument that was prevailing, was that, no, that's our responsibility. So we did. We put, right now, today, Bancroft or Maurice Bridget Academy and the Byard School has an extra AP that they don't earn that we put into the schools to make sure they had a chance of being successful. And the other thing I would just point out is that working with the Wilmington Learning Collaborative, the MOU that we have will be running out, so we will have to develop another MOU, and that's going to require some communication and collaboration with the other 2 districts to make that happen. Next slide, please. So as you well know, Dr. Burgos is the executive director of the Wilmington Learning Collaborative, but this is the first year she's actually supervising the leaders of our city schools. So she actually works with them in collaboration around PD, around resources, around the things that they need from the community. They're all working collaboratively, or she's working collaboratively with all of our leaders, the principals of all of our schools to make that happen, and providing financial support in doing that. The one thing that I really like about the effort that's coming from the Wilmington Learning Collaborative is the teacher pipeline. We're short, and I think there was a comment made earlier about going into a school and there's not certified teachers. And I'm sure that was directed at one of our schools more than others. And it is a problem, and we recognize it as being a problem. The superintendent recognized it as being a problem. So this initiative to help that pipeline by helping paraeducators get certified as teachers over a period, I think it may be 2 years, I think is monumental, and it's great. The next slide, please. So I'll leave you with, before question and answer, I'll leave you with we now have an acting superintendent who's been on board since September, but officially October. We began the process of talking with him in August, but on September he came on, and then he was officially, because there's some certifications from the state that you had to have that had ran out, so he got those in place. And so October, our first board meeting, second Tuesday of October, he became our official acting superintendent. He is proposing, and it'll come to the board next Tuesday, February 25th as the date for a referendum that the district is going to need, and the board would need to approve that date. And so we will get that proposal. It may change a day or two, or they may come up with something, but right now the last date that I heard was February the 25th, 2025 for the referendum for the Christiana School District. And with that, I end my presentation.
Thank you, sir. President Congo had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been mentioned, you mentioned it earlier, Mr. Patton, but it's been mentioned often that Wilmington is one of the only cities of our size that doesn't have any say in how our youth, how they're educated. Can you give me some examples of other cities and the type of authority they have that we don't?
So I belong to an organization called School Board Partners. It's a national organization. If I went on my phone right now and typed in a question, I can get the answer from all across the country, no matter what it is. And so one of the benefits to that is being able to have access to people and talk about different things. We're one of the few cities that don't have control over their school districts. Right now, and I really been thinking about this, so I'll publicly say it here. Chicago mayor appoints his school board members.
Okay.
And just recently, the whole school board resigned based on his request, based on some things that were happening. They all resigned and appointing all new folks.
Okay.
It had something to do, without going into a long story, it had something to do with the superintendent that the mayor wanted to replace, and the school board members were kind of hesitant. So it's back and forth, but it's public. You can pull it up, you can read it. When I think about that, like that makes a lot of sense. When you have school boards who can't function, and I'm in one of those right now, then I think the state or someone should have the ability to say, we're going to disband this school board and we're going to bring in school board members who can work functionally together. Because the idea of school boards is to work for kids.
Right.
And so when it gets so messy with adults, then I think there's got to be this consideration to do what they've done in Chicago. However, I was in 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, I was up in Massachusetts, Springfield, and their mayor decided they were going to do something unique with their schools, just to give you an example. And so what he did was took the most challenging schools in their city school district, and he brought in an organization, and he funded that organization. I think he took something like about 5% of the annual budget and gave it to that organization, stood back, had some of his staff that were a part of the committee that operated those schools. And the achievement level went way up. In Houston, Texas, some years ago, I brought this concept back to the state or district that we weren't interested in it. Their lowest, but they have like A, B, C, D, and it could go further in terms of grading of the school's ability to serve kids successfully. They're huge, Houston Public Schools. They have what we used to have, but we were too small to be successful having that, which is they have regional superintendents. One of the regional superintendents said, these kids are failing. This is crazy. How can this go on? So he doubled the pay for tutors. They hand-selected the tutors. So because they were paying you $100 an hour, you didn't get to automatically say, I want to do that. And the same failing people coming in working with kids, they interviewed and selected across the whole district folks that would work with their kids after school. They then took a concept that was really simple, and he said, okay, I have 100. I'm just using this number. I have 100 individuals who are supporting our schools as, can't think of the title, it'll come to me, but supporting our school instructional coaches. He took that 100 and put them all in that one school. For a year, they jumped up 2 levels in 1 year. But he focused the talent and the skill level needed from the staff into that school and used financial resources for after-school programs so that they're also working with those kids after school. So there's a number of programs. In Texas, we saw one where it was connected with a college and the school. And the college worked at making sure the teachers were adequate and had the skills that they needed. But they also gave them some instructional kinds of supports that a school may not have at that magnitude. So there are a number of ways, but almost every major city, mayor, and council have the ability to decide on that for their kids. And in a city of 70 to 80,000 folks, and not to be able to have any say over what's going on with your kids, again, I use the term loosely, maybe two, is criminal. And I think that the mayor, and I said this to the mayor, by the way, I've said this to the governor, and I may have even said it to you. You have to have an active role in this. People, when we start picking principles, we shouldn't allow, especially when we've seen it over and over and over again, the failure. We shouldn't step back and just say, well, it's their schools. It's your kids. So there's got to be a way that you have some say in this. And I don't know how that happens. I don't know if that happens totally through legislation. I don't know if that happens through collaboration. I don't know how that happens. But what I've said to the Alma group is that they should reach out to you, and they asked me to make a soft contact, but they should reach out to you, and you're decide about the council. They should reach out to the mayor, and the mayor decide, working collaboratively, what role they want to play in the selection and what they want to see from the next principal of those two schools, because we can't keep turning principals over. Dr. Green said it well. The consistency of staff is huge in terms of the academic progress that you'll see out of kids. We can't keep turning staff over. We can't keep turning administrators over.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman White?
Mr. Chair, thank you for recognizing me. I'm a nascent activist regarding education, so I want you to just bear with me for a minute. What is the total budget for the Christiana School District?
I have no idea how many
that's right.
millions of dollars it is.
So it's a, man,
I want to say 200 and some, but I'm not sure.
but my question is, my follow-up question, and I can take it offline, you can have somebody give this information back. I was wondering, and you must have been reading my mind, because you came up with a number of fiscal initiatives. I'm just wondering how much of X budget goes directly to service the kids, other than, I mean, you can say everything's indirectly salaries, but I'll take the answer offline. I just want to know how much of that budget goes.
So there's a number per student, about $22,000 per student.
Right.
But
I would imagine that's part of salary.
No, that's for the things needed to educate that student.
But it doesn't include salary.
Even transportation.
So it doesn't include salary?
It does include salary, yes.
It does or doesn't?
It does.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And again, I'm not going to prolong it. I know somebody's got to get paid to educate X, Y, Z. I get that. But you mentioned some other things, and I just want to know, are there direct dollars that go to or allocated to a student? And let's just say what you just mentioned, tutors. Is there a dollar, if I spend $1 on the chair to educate this child directly outside the union and the DSEG and all that stuff? Or is the budget sculptured like that? And again, I
So
can
it's
take my
different.
answer
It's
offline.
different. So the figure I gave you is in the classroom.
Right.
So if you have tutors that come in, that's a different budget.
Right.
And so that's not calculated into that per student cost.
Right. So again, I'll take the answer offline. My question is non-salaried teachers, how much of the budget, if any, is directly allocated to serving that student? So if somebody.
That's a number. We have a CBOC, which is a group that works. They have meetings monthly, and they control the funds, or they don't control the funds, but they look at the funds from the district and tell us if we're following the right protocol for this or the right protocol for that, how we're spending money in this bucket versus this bucket. So those folks would be the people, our CFO, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Bob Vaca, would be a person I would put you in touch with who could give you that information specifically.
Just have them reach out to Ms. Halls and
Okay.
with your permission or.
Sure.
and
That's not
do
a problem.
follow-up conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from council?
I have one.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've often heard how sometimes our children, they start school already behind the 8 ball. Has there ever been any discussion around trying to regulate daycare?
So that's what the pre-K is. That's what that model is. That model is to get as many kids in our system before they start school, so that once they start, there's not that big lag or that big gap. So there's a lot of efforts made. I know that our district was looking at how we could expand. I showed you the numbers earlier. For each of the city schools, if you look at those, they're growing. Each school is greater than it was last year. So that would work in conjunction with what your thinking is, which is the sooner we can get kids in school and learning how to do school, the better they'll do once they get to those grades beyond 3rd grade. So yes, we're cognizant of that. The state is cognizant of that. They're putting out money and putting out funds to have these pre-K schools available. So yeah, I think there's a lot going on. Excuse me. I think there's a lot going on with that.
Just a follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that pre-K is early enough to start that formal, like organized?
Well, so
Because
we're working with in the counties, suburbs, it's a little bit different because their kids can come and their parents can pay for them.
Okay.
I think there are programs in the city that you have that capture kids before, but I don't think anyone would say that we don't want to start kids as soon as humanly possible learning, and that we financially shouldn't support it. I think we should, and I think there's if you look at and talk to the legislators, I think that there's a lot of money being utilized for that purpose.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the sooner you get them, the better off they can be. If you can get kids into daycares like 1 year.
Right.
Some people do it before that, but 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, yeah, before they get in school, they have a much deeper vocabulary. They have a much deep ability to do and perform certain skills. So, but the biggest thing I think is getting kids at that age just to learn how to collaborate with each other, learn how to do small tasks with each other. learn vocabulary. So I think that the sooner you can start that, I think the better off we're going to be as a city. If you ask me, is that the one biggest thing we can do? Remember, we do well in our schools with kids up into third grade, second, third grade, usually right around third grade. So I think it's finding out what happens there and what resources we need there to be able to make sure that they have the foundation to be successful with the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But we usually lose them around third grade. So we give them readings, if we give them the right reading programs and the right reading opportunities around vocabulary, I think we have a much better chance of educating those kids successfully.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How you doing, Dr. Patton? I mean, Mr. Patton, how you doing?
Y'all just trying to make me go back to school, but I want to make it clear, I'm retired. I have no intentions on doing that.
I'm like the chair, we so used to saying it, but I have a question. Why, I mean, I know a little bit, but why do you think that the Christiana School District has been failing our youth, our kids?
I think it's a combination of things. I don't think it's intentional. I really don't. I don't think people go into this and say, I want to figure out how I can mess up the Wilmington kids in the Wilmington schools. I think what happens is, because I fell into this trap. I think we believe that we know what they need. And so we take the leadership role, we go into it, and there's so many things that come at you, and before you know it, like you're under the gun. And it's hard to go back and recoup that. So I think that's why I keep fighting for whoever steps in these two schools now, right now, there should be no question about it. They should be proven transformational leaders. The problem with that is, where are they coming from? It's not like you can just pull them out of a hat. So you have to find someone. So what does that mean? Maybe you got to pay them more.
All right.
Some years ago, I was hired at a school called Stall High School in South Carolina. They were paying me $30,000 more to come than the principals they already had. The state was supplementing that $30,000 because they had a school that they were having trouble with in the special ed field. So maybe we got to pay these people. Maybe we find a great person who wants to do this work, who has proven the ability to do this work, and then maybe we have to pay them outside of the scale that we've set and said, because that's what we do. We don't negotiate it. We say, this is the salary based on these many years of that you've taught or that you've been an administrator, and so we're paying you off of that. Guys, these schools aren't traditional schools. These are failing schools day in and day out, year in and year out. So if we're not willing to do something different, then you're not going to attract people to just come and work in these schools. So you're going to continuously get people who aren't prepared.
Mr. Patton, I'm sorry. So you're saying one, just even if you just gave me 2 or 3 things, one of the major things, I'm sorry, you're saying is pay. And what would be 2?
Pay.
Pay, 3 pay, okay. Well, Governor, Matt Myers said that he is interested in doubling teachers' salary, and I think that's a good idea, just with what you just said. So, okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, if they have the training and the ability, the thing that would stop them from coming here would be pay.
Right.
So that's what you kind of have to do. And in this case, you're not only going to probably pay someone, you're probably also going to guarantee them a 3-year contract. I don't think anyone who's a true transformational leader and who can go anywhere is going to come someplace unless there's some benefits for them. So I think that would be conversations I think people should have when they meet with the Alma Group to talk. Maybe that's part of what the conversation ends up being. What are the top 3 things that people would want to come here and to make sure that we can match them before we go out trying to interview people?
Mr. Chairman, I follow up.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Now, I just want to say, Ms. Patton, thank you so much for always fighting for our kids and, you know, being a warrior out there. It's not many left out there. So, I mean, I just appreciate, you know, you and the hard work that you're doing to try to assist our youth. And that's all. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah, and Mr. Patton, I'll definitely say I agree a lot of what you said, and I think it's definitely going to be that balance between legislation and collaboration where we're going to have to make that work. But I think the city has to be involved, and everyone knows the city needs to be involved. So what we're going to have to do is it's going to have to become a part of legislation. It's going to have to come, if it needs to come from the state level on down, but this city has to be involved in our children's education. I was lucky enough to be sent to Jackson, Mississippi for a conference, and they took me to this low performing school. 4 years in a row, it was the worst in the state, and now it's one of the best in the state. And it was all about what you said, the investment in the children. They had the honor students from charter schools in the district tutoring the kids. That was their community service. This was the give back that they had. This is the way they got the community. So it was just being creative. And that after school program right there, it was kids from different schools wanting their children to be in that after school program. And this was all done by children and teachers. You know, they have a few college students, but it was high school students tutoring the fourth through eighth grade students. And it was all run in that school, and just to see those scores go up, and I thought, why can't Delaware do this? And we can't do this because the investment is just not that. We haven't been committed. Like you said, a transformation person, that person who thinks out of the box and tries to do different things outside the school curriculum, outside of what the district is saying is allowable. That becomes part of the problem. And I guess my two questions for you: one is, what role can the city play in reference to the MOU that you guys have to sign? And then how can the city play a role in your district?
So I think that one of the questions that I would pose, being the city, to the leadership of the district is, we want a seat at the table.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's a legitimate question. And I don't know what that looks like. I actually, let me back up a second, because I think that there's another thing that I'm really fighting for right now, which is, I think to make school, Dr. Green he spoke earlier. And whenever I have a chance to speak with him, there's just healthy, well-rounded conversations about how we help kids. Not how I make it, or how he makes it, or how we help kids. Here's one of the, to me, dominant things that is missing from city school education in the Christiana School District. Parents.
Parent involvement, yes.
Parents.
Agreed.
I've been asking for 3 years for parent councils in all of our schools in the Christiana School District, for 3 years. I was told, oh, we have them, and went and checked with the principals. They said, we don't have that.
Not at all.
So that's the first piece. The second piece, if we want our schools to be successful, then we have to find true transformational, experienced leaders. Not an assistant principal who's a good assistant principal, because they ain't made no decisions and they haven't transformed any schools. We need someone who has demonstrated, and we need to pay them, who has the demonstrated credentials, data that they can put out that we can go track and verify. You get that. You get parent councils, and you get one more piece. And all these three pieces come together to make decisions for that school. The staff. When you make decisions and the staff's a part of it, they're more willing to implement it. They're more willing to go over and above to make sure you're doing it.
To do a Saturday.
So the fidelity of implementation of whatever it is you're trying to do is there. It's at the table. Because you have those three pieces that are the three biggest pieces of the puzzle. And so the parents, the staff, and I'm not just talking about the parents. I'm talking about the custodians. I'm talking about the SROs. I'm talking, any of those folks that work in your building is staff and the leader. And that's where the decisions should be made for those schools. Now, if you make those, if you, Charleston, South Carolina was the district that I had interviewed for. You interviewed at the school and they had like 20-some people, including kids, custodians, they had everybody. If you got past that interview, the next interview was with the parent councils. If you didn't get past the parent council, you didn't move on. So they have a system in place, a vital commitment to making sure everybody has a voice and has stake in the game. And that's what I think we miss. So that I hope that answers part of one of your questions. The other one was?
The role that the city could play.
So I think the role the city has to play is that you have to be like, yesterday or the day before, I got an email from a parent, and the parent was asking, I mean, they really had some real concerns. A city school. I think there should be some liaison
Agree.
that works with our schools that is connected to city council or the mayor's office, somewhere in there, that these parents can go to, because if you come, Al, you come to my building, you have a voice, because I know you and I know what you do. Anita comes, she may not have a voice. Same thing. So we need to make sure, and at one point we had a superintendent who was talking about having one person at the district who was an advocate for parents. And that person worked for the district, in the district. And so I just think you guys have to figure out some kind of way. How do we do that? How do we come up with a connection? And that might be the conversation you have with Dr. Anajeski. That might be the conversation that Dr. Green can share with you about. But there has to be a true, authentic, honest commitment to something that looks like that.
Thank you, sir.
And then you ask yourself another question. I mean, really, you need to ask yourself this question. Why do things, because they're not, no district's perfect. You can go to any of these districts and find some issues. But why does Red Clay have so much commitment to improving the outcomes of kids in the city over us? But none of the districts are where they want to be in terms of student outcomes. I tell you that right now. But the effort that you're making to change it makes a difference. So,
Very much. Thank you, sir.
yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I think I have, is that a hand raise? Or is that old?
Councilmember Oliver and Councilmember Fields is having audio.
Okay. Councilwoman Oliver?
Yes,
Follow
I
up.
appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to ask a question that you tapped into. I just want to make a statement. I think the effort with Red Clay is because it's somebody who looks like us and cares about our youth. I mean, I'm not against people coming from out of town if they're dedicated to our children, but it's nothing like someone that's looking like our children. When you go in some of their schools, they have principals, vice principals, teachers, etc., that look like them. So I think it's an extra effort from Red Clay to make sure he's putting the extra effort to try to save our youth. And when you have people that's not from here sometime and getting paid that kind of money and not investing in our kids, such as Christiana School District, I think it's just sad. So
that's why I think you have parent councils, because parent councils can hold you accountable. So I don't care who you are, what you look like, where you come from. If you're sitting in that seat, there are some expectations that come with that, and I'm going to bring it to you if I'm a voice in the system. So if I have these three prongs, the staff, the parent, and the leader, and they're not gelling and working together, that someone's rising up to share that. So let me be clear about something, because I don't always say it. I know it, so I just take it for granted that everybody else does. Let me be clear about this. When I go into our city schools, there are people in there who love our kids. I know teachers who have left, didn't want to leave, but left because they felt the leader wasn't providing the direction that school needed to go, and so they left, not because of the kids. And if you had the right leader, they come back. There are white teachers, there are Hispanic teachers in our city schools who I would go to war with in a minute. But I think we keep getting it wrong where it's most important, which is at the top. If the leader is not a person who understands, who's willing to think outside the box, who's willing to use money wherever they need to use it for the right reasons for learning, right, or culture, you can do all you want. And I know teachers in our city schools last year who were just like pulling their hair out because they wanted to help kids, but they were being crippled. So leadership is important, and I think we keep missing it. And if you go back, when I left Bayard, those kids were performing around 50% proficiency, and we got them in the 30s. But there were such great teachers there who loved those kids. We had those teachers in Paris right now. They just need somebody that they trust. They just need somebody that they build a relationship with. Don't mean it has to be perfect all the time, because shoot, mine wasn't. It means that they know that what you're doing from your heart, and that you know what you're doing, and if you don't, you're asked. So that's the biggest thing that I think we should be pushing for, to make sure. I would like to say that our kids need to see themselves in whoever teaches them and whoever leads them, but not in every single classroom, not in every single building. You've got great people who may be leading 80% kids who are Hispanic, but they're white or they're black. They have a relationship with the kids, they're educating the kids, and that's what you want to see. So I think if we think of it, and this is just me speaking, I think if we think of it in those terms, then I think we begin to see a process where our kids are moving academically.
Right. Thank you for your time, sir. Are there any other questions from any other council members? Any from the public? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion, Mr. Chair.
Can I get a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
I was great second.